All right, you thirsty bastards. Ditch those goddamn margaritas for something a little stronger. Because we're diving headfirst into a place where you'd fry faster than an egg on asphalt. The Simpson Desert.
Ooh, sounds lovely.
Yeah, forget your fancy all-inclusive resorts and shit.
Right.
This shithole is for the hardcore, the sun-baked, the I-told-you-so kind of adventurer.
It's not exactly a walk in the park.
No.
That's for sure. But it does have a certain allure, a raw beauty that can, I don't know, make you feel like you stepped onto another planet.
Right, like Mars. But it ditched the red rocks and went full-blown sand dune.
Yeah.
We're talking massive, mind-boggling dunes.
Ew.
The longest parallel dunes in the world, stretching across a whopping 176,500 square kilometers.
Yeah.
That's like, what?
Big.
7 New Jerseys glued together with sweat and desperation.
It is pretty mind-blowing when you think about it. Sand, something so constantly shifting and fluid, creating something so permanent and structured.
Seriously. It's like those dunes just said, screw you, wind, and decided to stay put for a few millennia. What's the secret sauce here? Some kind of desert voodoo holding those sandy bastards in line?
Not voodoo, but definitely some fascinating science at play. You've got these persistent winds blowing from the south-southeast.
Darn along.
Thousands of years, shaping the sand into these long parallel ridges. But, and here's the kicker, it's the vegetation. Those tough-as-nails desert plants that play a crucial role in keeping them anchored.
So it's like a desert hairspray, keeping those dunes from getting blown away.
Yeah.
Speaking of getting blown away, have you seen that picture of Big Red? That dune's a goddamn behemoth, 40 meters high.
Napanerica, or Big Red, as it's more affectionately known, is definitely an impressive sight. But it's not the only big boy out there. The Simpson Desert is a whole playground of dunes.
Really?
With heights varying across the landscape. Smaller in the west, they rise up to a towering 30 meters on the eastern side.
Okay, so we've got these massive parallel dunes ranging in height like a goddamn roller coaster. But they can't all be boring beige, right?
Oh, no.
What about the colors? Is it just one giant sand pit?
The colors are far from boring.
Okay, good.
The Simpson Desert boasts a surprising palette.
Okay.
From pristine white to deep reds, with hints of pink and orange thrown in for good measure. It's all thanks to the geological cocktail
Sounds delicious.
of quartz and iron oxide that makes up the sand.
Hold up. Iron oxide?
Yes.
Like rust. So basically it's a giant rusty sandbox.
Essentially, yes. The iron minerals oxidize, creating that distinctive reddish hue. And the varying concentrations of these minerals, along with other factors like the presence of vegetation, create that stunning spectrum of colors you see in photographs.
Right.
It's like nature decided to get artsy with a rusty palette.
All right, that's pretty damn cool.
Yeah.
But let's cut the crap. It's still a freaking desert, right?
Yeah.
Hot as hell, dry as a bone. How the hell does anything survive out there? I mean, beyond a few prickly bushes and the occasional sunbathing lizard, who in their right mind would call this place home?
You'd be surprised the Simpson might look like a desolate wasteland, but there's a whole lot of tenacious life clinging on beneath that scorching sun. We're talking creatures and plants that have evolved to thrive in conditions that would make most of us shrivel up and die.
Okay, spill the beans. What kind of badass creatures can handle this hellscape? Are we talking fire-breathing dragons or something?
Not dragons, but definitely some hardcore survivors. First off, you got your Spinopithecus grass.
Okay.
It's like the Chuck Norris of plants. Tough, prickly, and practically indestructible. And don't underestimate those other tough grasses and shrubs dotting the landscape.
Right.
They've mastered the art of drought resistance, sucking up every drop of moisture they can get their roots on.
So they're like the desert's version of camels, storing up water for a dry spell. But plants are one thing. What about animals?
Right.
I can't imagine anything bigger than a scorpion wanting to hang out in this furnace.
Oh, you'd be surprised. The Simpson is home to those iconic red kangaroos.
Oh, yeah.
You know those muscular marathon runners built for enduring these arid conditions? They're out there hopping across the dunes, looking for a bit of shade and a mouthful of whatever they can find.
Kangaroos in the desert.
Yeah.
Makes sense, I guess. They're already weird-looking enough to fit right in. But what about predators? Something's got to be keeping those roos in check, right?
You bet. Dingoes.
Oh, yeah.
Those cunning canines rule the roost out there.
Really?
They're always on the prowl looking for a tasty kangaroo steak. Or a careless tourist who wandered too far from camp.
Dingoes, eh? I always thought they were more of a coastal thing. Guess they like to mix things up. But what about something a little more, I don't know, exotic? Surely there's something weirder than a dingo lurking in the dunes.
Well, if you're lucky, you might spot a parentee. A parenti. That's a giant monitor lizard.
No shit.
It can grow up to 2 meters long. They're basically the Komodo dragons of the Australian outback.
Holy shit. 2 meters long.
Yeah.
That's bigger than my ex-girlfriend's temper. Now that's a lizard I wouldn't want to mess with. But hold on, we got these big scary creatures. But what about the little guys? Surely there's some small fry trying to make a living in this sandy wasteland.
Of course. There's the echidna.
Right.
That spiky little weirdo that's like the desert's version of a Roomba. They just trundle around, gobbling up ants and termites, minding their own business.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the kawari.
A what?
A kawari. A tiny marsupial mouse that's ridiculously cute and surprisingly adapted to this harsh environment.
A marsupial mouse. That sounds adorable. Bet they're popular with the ladies. But enough about the furry and scaly folks. What about the feathered friends? Any birds crazy enough to call this place home?
Absolutely. You'll find resilient birds like the gray grass wren
Okay.
and the Aryan grass wren flitting amongst the spinifex, singing their hearts out. And when those rare desert rains arrive, it's a whole different ballgame.
Okay.
Ephemeral lakes and wetlands pop up,
What?
attracting a plethora of water birds like ducks, pelicans, and even majestic black swans. It's a sight to behold.
Wait, ephemeral lakes? What the hell are those? Sounds like something out of a fantasy novel.
They're basically temporary lakes that form after heavy rainfall.
Okay.
They might last for a few weeks or months,
Really?
providing a vital source of water for wildlife
Right.
and creating these vibrant oases in the middle of the desert. But once the water evaporates, they vanish like a mirage, leaving behind just dry clay pans and a memory of their fleeting beauty.
So it's like a desert party. Everyone shows up for a good time, and they disappear until the next downpour. Nature's a bit of a tease, isn't she? But all this talk about water's got me thinking, we're talking about a desert here, right?
Huh.
Where the hell does all this water come from? Are these animals just really good at holding their pee?
That's where the magic of the Great Artesian Basin comes in.
Okay.
It's a vast underground reservoir.
So there's like a giant underground swimming pool under all this sand.
In a way, yeah.
Wow.
Water from the basin seeps up through cracks and fissures in the earth, creating springs and soaks that provide a lifeline for the desert's inhabitants. It's one of the reasons why Simpson, despite its harsh conditions, can support such a diverse ecosystem.
So it's like a hidden network of water pipes supplying the desert with his lifeblood. That's pretty damn impressive.
Ah.
But how the hell did anyone even discover this underground water source? Did some thirsty explorer just trip over a spring and say, jackpot?
The discovery of the Great Artesian Basin was a gradual process,
Okay.
a combination of scientific exploration, keen observation, and a bit of luck.
Right.
Early European settlers noticed that some areas of the desert had these natural springs bubbling up,
Yeah.
providing a reliable source of water for their livestock. They started digging wells and eventually realized that there was this vast underground reservoir stretching for hundreds of kilometers.
So basically, they struck liquid gold. I bet those early settlers were pretty stoked about that. But hold on. We've been talking a lot about the European side of things. Didn't Aboriginal people live in this area for ages before any white fella dared to set foot in this sand pit?
Absolutely. We're talking tens of thousands of years of continuous occupation by Aboriginal people. They knew this land intimately, understood its rhythms, and had a deep connection to its resources, including the water that sustained them.
All right, so what's their secret? How did they manage to survive in a place where most people wouldn't last a week without air conditioning and a case of beer?
They were masters of adaptation.
Right.
They knew where to find the springs, how to read the subtle signs of the desert, and had developed ingenious techniques for locating and accessing groundwater.
So they were like the original desert survivalists, MacGyvering their way through this harsh landscape. I bet those early explorers wished they had a fraction of their knowledge when they first ventured into this unforgiven place.
You're absolutely right. Many early explorers underestimated the challenges of the Simpson Desert and paid the price for their arrogance. They faced scorching heat, limited water supplies, and the constant threat of getting lost in a sea of sand.
Yeah, sounds like a recipe for disaster. So who was the first dumbass to try and conquer this thing? Did someone lose a bet or something? All right, you sandblasted survivors, we're back for the final leg of our Simpson Desert Odyssey. We've talked about the crazy creatures, the killer dunes, and those badass Aboriginal folks who made this place their own. But let's get real for a minute. What happened when the white fellas decided to waltz in and civilize this joint? Did they just fuck everything up as usual?
Well, let's just say the arrival of European settlers didn't exactly improve things for the Simpson Desert. They brought their cattle and sheep, built fences and roads,
Yeah.
and generally started messing with the natural balance that had existed for millennia.
So they basically treated it like their own personal playground.
Pretty
Not giving a shit about the consequences. Typical.
much.
But what about the Aboriginal people? How they handled this invasion of their ancestral lands?
It was a brutal and devastating time for Aboriginal communities across Australia, including those who called the Simpson Desert home.
Right.
They were forcibly removed from their land, their traditional ways of life disrupted, their connection to country severed. It's a dark chapter in our history, and the scars are still felt today.
That's fucked up, man. It's like someone barging into your house, kicking you out, and then telling you how to live your life. But hold on, didn't you say that Aboriginal people still live in the Simpson Desert? How the hell did they manage to reclaim their connection to the land after all that bullshit?
It's a testament to their resilience, their determination, and their unwavering love for country.
Yeah.
In recent decades, there's been a growing movement for land rights and cultural recognition. This has led to the establishment of indigenous protected areas, where Aboriginal people are taking the lead in managing their land and preserving their cultural heritage.
So they're fighting back, taking control of their own destiny. That's pretty damn inspiring. But let's be real, the Simpson Desert is facing a whole lot of other shit these days, right? Climate change, invasive species, all those apocalyptic buzzwords we hear about on the news.
You're not wrong. The Simpson Desert is a delicate ecosystem, and it's facing some serious threats. Climate change is a big one. Temperatures are rising, rainfall patterns are changing, and those extreme conditions that make the Simpsons so unique are becoming even more extreme.
So it's like turning up the heat on an already scorching oven. That's got to be messing things up for the plants and animals trying to survive out there.
Absolutely. Those tough desert plants and animals have adapted to survive in harsh conditions, but there's only so much they can take. And then you've got invasive species like feral camels and rabbits that are wreaking havoc on the native vegetation and competing with native animals for resources.
Camels? Seriously, I thought those were supposed to be desert friendly. What the hell are they doing out there causing trouble?
They might be well suited to desert life, but they weren't originally from Australia.
Right.
They were introduced by European settlers and have gone feral, breeding like crazy, and destroying the natural balance of the ecosystem. They gobble up native plants, trample fragile habitats, and generally make a nuisance of themselves.
So it's like a goddamn camel invasion. That's just adding insult to injury. But what are we doing about all this shit? Are we just going to sit back and watch the Simpson Desert turn into a giant dust bowl?
There are a lot of people working hard to protect and restore the Simpson Desert. Conservationists, scientists, park rangers, and Aboriginal communities are all working together to manage those threats and ensure this unique ecosystem has a future.
So it's a team effort, like a desert Avenger squad fighting for the fate of the Simpson. But let's be honest, most people will never actually set foot in this place, so why the hell should they care? What's in it for them?
The Simpson Desert might seem like a remote and isolated place, but it's connected to the wider world in ways that most people don't realize.
Okay.
It's a carbon sink, helping to regulate our climate. It's home to unique and endangered species that contribute to the biodiversity of our planet. And it holds cultural and spiritual significance for Aboriginal people, a connection to country that stretches back tens of thousands of years.
So it's not just about saving a bunch of sand dunes and prickly plants. It's about protecting a vital part of our planet's ecosystem and respecting the cultural heritage of those who call this place home.
Exactly. The Simpson Desert might be tough, but it's also fragile. It needs our respect, our understanding, and our willingness to fight for its survival.
Damn, you're making me feel all warm and fuzzy inside. But enough with the touchy-feely shit. What's the bottom line here? What can our listeners actually do to help out?
There are a lot of ways to get involved. You can support conservation organizations working in the Simpson Desert, educate yourself and others about the challenges it faces, and advocate for policies that protect our environment.
So basically, we got to use our voices, our wallets, and our social media feeds to spread the word and make a difference.
Exactly. The Simpson Desert needs all the help it can get.
All right, you've convinced me. I'm ready to join the Desert Avenger squad. But before we sign off, any last words of wisdom for our listeners?
If you ever get the chance to visit the Simpson Desert, do it. It's an experience you won't forget. But remember to respect the land, its inhabitants, and its cultural significance. And if you can't make the trip in person, take some time to learn more about this amazing place, appreciate its beauty, and share its story with others.
Well said, my friend. Well said. So there you have it, folks. The Simpson Desert. A land of extremes, of beauty, of resilience, and of challenges. It's a place that will test you, inspire you, and leave you forever changed. Until next time, stay curious, stay adventurous, and keep it dusty. Cheers.